Welcome to another episode of The Quilling Solution, where we look to empower you with awareness and actionable insights. And today's topic is trust, right? And by its very definition, trust is the firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength or someone or something. Think about that. I mean, the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. Now, this year has arguably been the most arduous year for many of us, right? With the way forward that is still very much uncertain. To pay the way forward, right, will require newly envisioned partnerships, allies, and solutions, all of which will need to be undergirded by trust, right? Like capital T type trust. So the question is, how do you create trust in an environment that is so much different than what we're used to? So much more virtual, so much more complex, and still pave forward in uncertainty, knowing you need trust. Well, joining me for this discussion today is my good friend, Jason O. Harris. And let me properly introduce Mr. Harris. Lieutenant Colonel Jason O. Harris is a dynamic thought leader, motivational speaker, military leader, and commercial airline pilot. Jason is an in-demand trust and leadership expert, having done work for the United States Air Force Academy Center for Character and Leadership Development, as well as training hundreds of American airline pilots on implicit bias and inclusion and diversity. He has been featured in publications such as Forbes, national print media outlets, and multiple podcasts recognizing him as an authority on trust, leadership, and high-performance teams. As a keynote speaker, Jason has shared his powerful and transformative message of no-fail trust with leading Fortune 500 organizations, top universities, the U.S. Air Force, and top-tier hospitality industry organizations. Jason and his network of consultants provide solutions to help organizations create cultures of trust and high-performance teams, leading to more empowered workplaces and significantly enhanced customer experiences as a result of high levels of employee engagement. Jason's most prized responsibility is his dedication to being a dedicated father and spouse. That's a good way to end your bio, Jason. Let me just say that, by the way. Please welcome from Aurora, Colorado, trust expert, Air Force veteran, and aspiring at-home chef, Lieutenant Colonel Jason Harris. Welcome to the Quilling Solution, sir.
Thanks so much, James. It's an honor to be here, man. I really, really appreciate it.
It's good to have you, man. It's good to have you. And, you know, I often try to shorten up a bio to make it shorter. But you know what? I've also started to get into the practice of reading the long form if I need to, because I want people to know who's here and get the full breadth of what they bring. So I think it lends strength to the topic, so they understand. You know, people need to understand the scar tissue you have to understand what you're speaking to as you start to go into the topic. And man, you bring so much to this topic through your background, and you've got plenty of scar tissue, brother. So looking forward to the discussion. Looking forward to it. So you give a lot away in your bio. So I'm going to ask you a difficult question from the onset. What can you share that people who know you well and think they know everything about you don't know? What's a fun fact you can share that people don't know?
Fun fact. Wow. That's a tough question you just asked, James. I mean, you're like, wait, people that know you well, but it's a fun fact that nobody really knows. And I'm like, well, if you know me well,
nope.
I know, man, like definitely and I want to come back to the bio thing in a minute, especially as we talk about trust. I love that you capitalize on the definition of trust. And I love that you talk about kind of reading the long form of the bio, but I would say probably the one thing that a lot of people just really don't know about me, unless they literally have spent a lot of time with me, is that horses saved my life. And basically, you know, I'm from Oakland, California, grew up in East Oakland, got to see a lot of traumatic things growing up, uncle selling drugs, things like that. My mom enlisted in the Army to get us out of Oakland, to get us out of that environment. And interestingly enough, I almost found myself right back into that same environment, completely removed from big city Oakland, small city near a military installation. And I found myself in trouble. I got sent to alternative school in the 6th grade, got sent to alternative school again in the 7th grade. And for those who don't know what I mean when I say alternative school, that's the school they send you to when you get kicked out of normal school.
Yeah.
And so the same principal, the same vice principal, she sent me to that school twice, not once, but twice for good measure. And there's a whole nother story as to that principal and how she made an impact on my destiny. Literally, the reason part of me sitting here today is because of that principle. But what ended up happening was in the 8th grade, I found myself getting in some more trouble, hanging out with some of the dudes that I actually was in alternative school with, and finding myself going down this path. And I met a gentleman who effectively became like my godfather, who effectively became a father figure, a mentor, and he introduced me to horses. And it was this thing, man. I remember when I was growing up in Oakland, and my mom was in Korea, her first assignment, and she told us we were going to be moving to Fort Hood, Texas. And all I thought was Texas. I want some snakeskin boots, and I want to ride a horse. And it wasn't, we moved there when I was in 3rd grade, and it wasn't until I was in the 8th grade that I finally was able to actually ride a horse, that I was finally able to realize that dream. And now when you ask me that question, what is that little thing that most people wouldn't know about? That's it, man. Horses saved my life. If it was not for the horses, I would have probably either been in jail or dead, having already been removed from big city Oakland, California, and the traumatic situations that I got to experience there. So that's that one little rare piece of information about me.
Good. Thank God horses saved your life, because for me, right behind me is a horse. And it's not the main one. There's a horse named Barkley who I'm not going to say saved my life, but definitely helped me, I'm going to say, be more courageous in my life, man. And I'm not going to tell the whole story today. I'll just say I had a fear of horses, and from my childhood, because of something that happened. And I took a ride on this horse named Barkley, which was Charles Barkley's horse, at this ranch out in Arizona doing this.
Wow.
Here's a short story. I'll give you the short story. When I was a kid, we were in New York at this park, and the instructor said, hey, all you guys just get on the horses, and they know what to do, and you just ride along, right? They know what to do, just ride. So we get on the horses, and I'm riding. At that time I wear glasses. I got my glasses on, right? So I'm putting my readers, and I'm, and we're like, and my horse doesn't move. So all I know is what I had seen on TV, right?
You did the whole, yeah,
right? So I kicked the horse. He took off, Jason, through Central. Well, I don't know if it was Central Park or whatever. Took off, right? Well, what do I do then? I grab his neck. Well, why did I do that? Full stride. Okay. So figure 15 minutes later, backing this horse into a corner, fire trucks and everything, right? By the time they get me off this horse, man, I'm done. Okay. I'm done. Fast forward, probably 15 years later, we're in Arizona on a business trip, and our boss takes us out one day, says he's taking us, you do the normal thing. You with a new team, you're going to do some team building. We're in the back of a van. We're all like, where you going? Where we going? Where we going? No one knows. No one knows. Finally, someone says, we're going to a ranch to go horseback ride. And I go, horseback ride? I'm like, I don't, my hand, I'm not doing horseback ride. So now I go, I just need to, and then so part of me is like, you should man up. You should just do it. Then you hear that other voice that goes, you don't have to prove anything to these people. You don't owe these people anything.
Nothing.
Other voice is like, you should man up. Other voice, you owe them nothing. Right? So we get there, and it's called the All-Star Ranch, and they hold horses for NBA and NFL players as a part of this charity thing they do. Everyone gets a horse. All these horses come off the truck. Everyone has nice little horses. I get the last horse. His name is Barkley. It's Charles Barkley's horse. Biggest horse I've ever seen in my life. All muscles, just flexing as he comes off the truck. And they say, okay, they're going to get me up on Barkley. And so we go through this thing, and we're going down the sides of mountains. All the little horses can tiptoe down the sides of mountains. Barkley and I just slipping and sliding. By the time we come in, man, I lost probably 8 to 10 pounds of sweat. Okay, I'm just done. But I overcame my fear, right? So at least I faced the fear. Now, it was so funny because then 10 years later, we were shooting this video for a conference at Legal Shield, and they want to do this intro on horses, right? They came to tell me about it. It's 4 of us, the leaders, the most senior leaders of the company, going to shoot this video. And they were really cautious about telling me, we want to shoot this video, and it's about so many of these horses, and they're all waiting for my response. But we know you're over the horse thing. I said, I'm over it, but I'm not looking forward to continuing to do this on a regular basis. So let's
right. I don't want to continue to try to relive this experience and try to get over this thing over and over.
Over and over and over again. Right. So yeah, so it's cool. So all right, so good, man. So talk to me about what made you, because going through your career, when I think about, you know, the time you spent in the military and then all the things you could have done coming out of the military, being a commercial pilot, so on and so forth, what made you lean into this work on trust?
You know, it's interesting, man. I had to sit down and I had to think through that as I got into it, and I think I kind of got into it by accident, but yet
Mhm.
at the same time, it wasn't accident, right? It was initially when I thought, oh, I want to do this speaking thing, or I want to get involved in making an impact on people. I had done some leadership courses, and they do a lot of these assessments. I went through the Center for Creative Leadership here in Colorado, and as the lady was laying out my results and kind of going through what she had discovered and evaluating all of my personality assessments, you know, literally there was several different personality assessments we did to include the 360, which I think is beyond valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And she began to explain to me where I sat on the spectrum in a good way, right? And she began to explain to me how unique I was. And so I thought, okay, fine. I put that in the back of my head, and then fast forward, I'm learning some things. I'm getting involved with some people, and I thought that I would just share my story about coming out of Oakland and all of the challenges that I was up against in life and kind of where I ended up at now.
Mm.
But I ended up not really talking about that. I incorporate a little bit of that into my trainings, into my workshops, and my keynote speeches. But I realized that what was extremely valuable to me in my military career was the trust that we built by way of how we operated.
All right.
And then I realized that the people that I really cared about, you know, like my mom, who was enlisted in the army, and she
Mm-hmm.
would tell me different things that happened to her. My grandfather, who served 20 plus years in the army, Korean War veteran, Vietnam veteran, and he chose to become a janitor when he retired from the army. And so as I looked at these things, as I began to really step back and evaluate, why am I here and why am I doing this stuff on trust?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I so involved in it? I began to realize that the essence of taking care of people, like my grandfather, the janitor, like my mother, the enlisted soldier, single mom, and then what I was able to experience as a aircraft commander in combat, an aircraft commander flying around the world in the military, being able to take care of people. And what I came to the realization was that it was all predicated upon trust.
Mm.
The whole essence of leadership, right? Like there are people who aspire to these great things in leadership. They want to be all these different things, right? And they have all these aspirations. And the one thing that I see so many people forget about, they forget about the people.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, every organizational problem, right? It's a people problem. And a people problem is a communication problem. And a communication problem also is built into this idea of a trust challenge, right? We can't get people to do what we need them to do or do what they should do. And we can't get an organization to work together in a cohesive manner if we do not create and cultivate an organization and a culture that's built on trust. So that is literally what drove me down this pathway of trust. I thought about some of my most challenging times in combat. And when I thought about what I experienced in combat, the people is why I'm here. The people is why I was able to come back safely, but we could not work as a crew in combat. We could not succeed and we could not come back safely if we collectively did not have trust within that aircraft, within that crew, within that squadron, within that organization, to know that, you know what, your political affiliations don't matter, where you're from doesn't matter, your religious beliefs, nothing matters.
Yeah.
Other than, can we trust each other to save our lives? Can we trust each other that when the fit hits the shan, we're going to be there and take care of each other?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. And you know, it's such an interesting topic, right? Because trust, and I think about trust and I think about intent as an example, right? And those two things being so what's the word I'm looking for? Them having a tangential relationship, right? Like intent is almost the revealing, right? Of so I trusted you in your intent, and then I see it play out, right?
Absolutely.
And so I remember being in the workshop once, and I forget what it was, a print workshop where print is another form of like disc or something like that, right? And you get your numbers and whatnot. And I was one of the only folks with this number. And I remember going through it, and the facilitator went through all the different numbers, and then he talked about my number. And he said, one of the challenges with your number is you focus a lot on intent. And
Interesting.
you need to figure out how to reduce that focus on intent. And I thought it was really interesting. So I'm sitting there thinking through it, and I said, I don't know. I have to process that. I need to marinate on that and really think about it. And as I thought about it, and even as I think about it now, here is my takeaway. I think intent is really important because grace is easily given if I understand your intent and you still mess up.
Yes, very much so.
Right? We are imperfect people, and we're going to make mistakes. Things are going to happen. When we try to perform it at our best, we're going to make mistakes and so on and so forth. But when I understand your intent and I can see it, right, and it shows up in other ways, then when those things happen, it's so much easier to give grace. It's so much easier to go in with each other and back each other up, and so much so on and so forth. So I just see those things having such a tangential, I don't know if that's the right word to use here, but those things are so tied together for me. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense, right? So like I was sitting down, I was doing some more studying on trust, and I started thinking about some of the basic elements of what it really means to have trust, right? So let's just go at a really basic level.
Yeah.
When you walk into an organization and you apply for a job, they give you the job, or you're the hiring authority and you hire someone, there is a basic level of trust, right? The idea that trust is it's about reliability, right? It's about I rely on you for something and you in turn rely on me for something. So as the employer, my expectation and what I trust you to do and what I'm relying on you to do is to do your job as the employee, as the team member, right? And that's the intent. And then in turn, as the team member, as the employee, my expectation of you as the employer is to provide me the right tools, right? But more importantly, in the very simplistic nature of what we're talking about, and the very simplistic idea of intent is, as the employee, I expect you to pay me on time.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's the intent that we go with. Now, if for some reason you say, look, James, I'm so sorry, man, we are having a challenging time meeting payroll, but I got you. You're going to go, I understand. I know where your heart is at. I know what your intent is based on the basic levels of trust that we've established. This basic contract that we've established with each other, right?
Right.
And that employee, if you come through and you say, look, man, you were supposed to sweep this area, or you're supposed to do X, Y, Z. You say, look, boss, I got it. I ran into some challenges, or I had a time crunch, or I had to deal with an emergency with my child, or whatever the case may be, right? You're going to say, no worries. Take care of it when you get a chance, because I know what your intent is, and I trust that you're going to be able to execute and do what you said you're going to be able to do.
Right.
That's it. So you're absolutely right, man. This idea of intent, it is very much tied to trust, right? Like, and the idea of what you said, that we are imperfect people. The very essence of trust is I'm willing to give you that bit of grace because I trust that you're going to do what you said you're going to do. And we have gotten to know each other at a level that we have a level of expectation, as well as understanding and appreciation of what we will do and what we're capable of doing, right? And that intent is so powerful. But if you show me that you have ill intent by any stretch, then now what happens? I'm now going to bring my level of trust, if not all of it, down.
Yes. Big time. Well said. Because that is the reality, right? When the malintent shows up, you can't help but reduce that level of trust, right? And I think there's a phrase, I didn't make it up. Someone else said it, right? Trust is built sometimes with deposits over time, but one big withdrawal can wipe it out easily.
Man, I think about something that one of my stepdads said when I was, matter of fact, when I had got sent to alternative school.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll appreciate the timing. It was right after Desert Storm. He had come back from Desert Storm. He and my mom had got married right before Desert Storm happened or whatever. He got shipped out, and he kind of gave me some wisdom before he left, or really some correction to say, look, stay out of trouble. That was
Yeah.
pretty much what he said. Well, then when he came back, I had gotten sent back to alternative school. And the one thing he said to me was exactly what you said, but a different way. He says, you could have 100 attaboys and you have one all crap moment and it ruins those 100 attaboys,
Yeah.
right? And so now, like that bank of trust deposits, you got to build that back up, right?
Right.
And now because of that, that becomes a challenge. And unfortunately, as we've seen, whether it's our relationships, whether it's with our children, whether it's with people in the workplace, sometimes that feels so insurmountable, right?
Yeah.
You look at people in relationships, whether it's in the workplace or in their relationships with their significant other, a lot of times they have that one oh crap moment, and it basically just gets rid of those 100 positive trust deposits. And some people just make a quick determination. They go, you know what? I'm not going to put in the work because I don't feel like it's worth it, or I'm not willing to build that bank back up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately that's tragic. But the reality is that you can overcome those challenges. You can overcome those times of that massive withdrawal, right?
Yeah.
But it takes patience. It takes intent. It takes a desire and a willingness to want to build back up that level of trust so that you can continue to move forward within that relationship, whether it's at work, whether it's at home, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that I appreciate in your work, having watched you now for over a year, just for folks listening, Jason and I are in a mastermind group together and have been for at least 18 months plus now. And so I know this is what he does. I've watched him do it. And so I know he's dedicated to this work. When you think about what's happening right now and you kind of juxtapose that against the different groups that you've helped, right, between the U.S. Air Force and different Fortune 500 companies, so on and so forth. One of the things I know is you have a model that you deploy, right? This no-fail trust model and the 5 keys within it. How do you think about the applicability of that model right now and those 5 keys?
Man, it's powerful, right? So, first and foremost, within my no-fail trust model, I talk about 3 primary things. That's being able to trust your training, being able to trust the process, and being able to trust the people. Unfortunately, right now, based on what we have going on, James, there's a lot of training and processes that have had to go out the window because we're operating under a completely new construct at this point in time, right? People have had to make changes and become innovative based on what the new environment has provided.
Yeah.
The third thing in that baseline of no-fail trust is being able to trust the people. Your people, you can still trust your people. You might have to figure out some new processes. You might have to then also train them on those processes, but the people element is still there. And then the other side of that is the cargo model that we came up with. And interestingly enough, I came up with that with my spouse. She helped me to really craft this idea of the cargo model. And the idea is that creativity, being able to give your people the space to be creative, but not just giving that to your people, giving it to yourself, right? A lot of us right now, man, we are so mentally taxed. We are so mentally traumatized that we have forgotten how to be creative. We haven't given ourselves space to be creative. We haven't given ourselves the grace. I mean, I'm guilty of that, man. There's been days, and I've talked to you a little bit about this, James, where I felt like, man, I'm just happy that I woke up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that piece there, man, is like is significant, and that's where we're in, right? So that cargo model, you got creativity, you got access to resources, you got responsibilities, you got goals, being able to share those goals, being able to have your teammates share those goals with you, and then you have opportunities for success, opportunities for small wins, right? And so right now, in this space, we have to figure out how do we do those different elements and how do those apply in this new environment. I think many of us, we realize that we we probably and most likely will not go back to where we were pre-March 2020.
Okay.
That's the reality,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so we've had to adapt new models within our organizations. We've had to figure out how to manage the people that we have. We've had to figure out how do we move forward and be innovative and come up with new processes. Figure out how do we do training. And oh, by the way, we've got to figure out how to do this with limited resources because we don't have the endless resources that we once had.
Right.
Well, at the end of the day, you still have people in your organizations and you still have to create and cultivate trust, right? You got to have them being able to be creative. You got to figure out how to give them access to tools and resources. Some of those tools and resources are already there and available. We just haven't, again, going back to that first one, we haven't given ourselves the space to be creative, to think about what those tools and resources are, or to be creative with how to find them and how to have them in a less expensive manner, right?
Mhm.
Responsibilities. This whole idea of responsibilities, that is knowing what is my responsibility as a leader, and then being willing, being able to actually relinquish some responsibilities. I
Mm.
was having a conversation with my wife last night, and she was telling me one of the challenges that she's dealing with in her work environment right now, and effectively, it was what we boiled it down to was the challenge that she's experiencing is because there's someone who doesn't want to necessarily fully relinquish that responsibility to another person,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
I've heard a lot of commanders in the Air Force, and what they say, James, is this: when they take over a squadron or a group or a wing, right? They say, look, as a commander, my job is to be the number one and to lead you. Your job is to do what you're entrusted to do and what you're responsible to do. But
Right.
what I want you guys to remember is this: bring me only the problems that you cannot solve. Bring me only the things that only I can handle, right? So if it's a paperwork drill or if it's some other task that I, as a member of that organization, can do,
Mm-hmm.
then that person effectively has empowered me and trusted me to go and do that. Don't bring them these small tasks that I can be responsible for.
Gotcha.
But that's hard, right? That's far easier said than done.
Sure. Sure.
How many times have you seen in an organization where somebody says that, and then all of a sudden you find that they come down and they go, nah, I need to take that because I need to make certain it's done right.
Yeah.
Or that mindset, that mantra that we've heard before, like, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself.
Yep. 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 So
Like,
let me ask you this. So I get your points. So, so much has happened. Very difficult to imagine. Like you think about your 3-point model of the training. The training is very difficult to execute today, given the change in the air. The processes are in flux at best in most places. And the last part of your model, the people. So your point is rely on the people and deploy this cargo model. Am I hearing you correctly?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then when you say creativity, is creativity the idea of truly unleashing every aspect of the talent? Is that your point around creativity?
Absolutely. Right. So, like, our people, they have the answers, right?
Mhm.
Like, and when you hire somebody, you hire them for a particular purpose. But beyond the particular job title, the job description, oftentimes what we fail to do is we fail to sit down with that person, get to know them, get to know what their intent is, and then we fail to take the time to acknowledge what other skill sets they bring to bear, that they bring to the fight. You see what I mean? And so because of that, we never truly get to experience their creativity. That
Gotcha.
doesn't mean that every idea that they bring, sometimes a good idea fairy runs rampant through an organization. We never get anything done. But what it means is that we have people that are so sharp, so amazing, so talented, so skilled, hence why you hired them to begin with. But they have skills, talents, and abilities that go above and beyond
Yeah.
that basic job description. And
Absolutely.
if we take time to allow them to utilize that creativity, they're going to solve a lot of our problems.
Sure.
They're going to figure out how to actually execute that training simpler, cheaper, faster,
Mhm.
more expeditiously, right? And they're also going to be the ones who are going to help to create those processes that we need to be able to excel in our organizations, right?
Absolutely.
But
So
if
I'm
we
hearing
never,
absolutely. I'm
oh,
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, if we never unleash their creativity, then we've missed an opportunity to truly allow our people to be their best selves in the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hearing, remove some rigidity, blur the lines, allow folks to go beyond their job description. Yeah. Love it. When you say access to resources, is this about, because I want to go through each element of this cargo model. I think this is really helpful for people. Access to resources, is this about tools predominantly?
It's tools, right? It's different types of resources, right? Sometimes it might be tools that are like hard tools, wrenches, whatever. Um, Other times it's tools such as access to databases.
That's what I
It
mean. Yeah.
might be, yeah, you know what I'm saying? So it's a broad term that encompasses a lot.
Okay.
But so it is both tools and resources that we need to be able to provide for our people. And sometimes they will actually tell us what they need, because a lot of times what we find, we do the research, is Gallup did some research, and what they found is that a lot of employees, they felt like they did not have the appropriate tools and the appropriate resources to do their job.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when you step back, you go, wait a minute. You do some more research and you find that a lot of times those tools, those resources were not very expensive, if there was even any cost at all. And then beyond that, we found that some organizations, they already had the tools and resources. Their people just weren't told where they were at.
Got it. And then, okay, so let's talk through responsibilities. How do you frame that one up?
Yeah, again, the responsibility. For me as the leader, I need to know clearly what my responsibility is and what my role is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I need to know what I should be responsible for. And sometimes this takes a deep dive, because again, if you look at many organizations, we hire up, right? So we have someone who's been in an organization and they keep going up, up and up. And then they, in their minds, they hold on to that responsibility from where they were at when they entered the organization, or they hold on to something because it's their baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like no one, like it's challenging for us to say we created this thing, we created this project or this resource, whatever that may be, and then to say I've now been promoted and I'm going to give my baby, my creation, to someone else to be responsible, right?
Yes.
And so there's an element there. And then the other piece of that, as a leader, knowing our responsibility, knowing our role, and then for our people, in order for us to trust them, as well as for them, our people, to feel like they are trusted, we need to make sure that they know what their role and their responsibility is.
Yeah.
Right. Oftentimes, what we find when we do the research, and what we find even anecdotally, is that people will live up to a standard that you set for them. And when you give people a set of responsibilities, they'll come to that set of responsibilities and they'll execute it. But if we don't spend the time to actually have the conversation with them, if we don't spend the time to explain to them what their role and their actual responsibility is, then it's going to be more challenging for them to actually be responsible for that task at hand. But yet we're holding them responsible for it. You know what I mean? And so there's a responsibility element that's on the side of the leader, and there's a responsibility element that's on the side of the people, that we as the leaders have to ensure that we give to them, with clarity, with a level of expectations and a level of trust that creates empowerment as well as intent, that allows them to show up and be their best, fullest self possible.
Yeah. And by virtue of the fact that you've incorporated this into your model, has your experience been that in working with many of these companies, responsibilities have not been clear up and down the food chain?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I work with a client. They're a high-end luxury hotel brand, not even a brand. They're just one particular hotel that's very highly rated. And we had their sales team and their conference staff team, right? And so basically the sales team, they make the sale. And then when you bring in the conference team, after the sale is made, and sometimes it's as far as 5 to 10 years in advance, the sale is made, then the conference team takes over and they do everything else, from getting them to the venue to on-site, all the things that are required. And as we're having the discussion in this workshop, what we realized was that the teams weren't talking to each other. And they did not fully respect or fully understand what each team's responsibility was. They didn't fully understand how to ensure that they handed over that level of responsibility for that client. And so now there were some gaps that would happen And now you have the potential that you bring down the level of that customer experience because internally they had not discussed whose responsibility it was.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
Were they shocked as you start to uncover these things and report back to the hosting party that brought you in, and you kind of reveal these gaps in terms of understanding responsibilities, etc.? People,
yeah, it was eye-opening for them, right? And again, in this organization, it was really neat, right? This particular hotel, they're kind of like one of the terminal brands that you go to, right? Like you work your way up, and that when you get there, you pretty much are like, look, I've made it.
yes,
And so the turnover rate was fairly low because of that.
right,
And so what we began to uncover was we had people that had been there for 20 plus years.
right,
And then there was people were starting to retire, so we had some new people there, and we found that there was a significant gap between those who had been there for a while and those who were relatively new.
gotcha,
And it wasn't something that was done with intentionality. It just happened.
mm-hmm.
And so we began to uncover that we needed to learn how to create the right training so that everybody was on the same sheet of music. We began to uncover that the processes had not been updated because people just assume, well, you should know that. And we begin to find these various gaps, and we begin to find opportunities for those two teams to actually communicate better so
Right,
that they could understand what each team's role and responsibility is. And each of those team leaders, those directors, they could understand how to better communicate with each other to
mm-hmm.
ensure that those teams knew what the responsibilities were and how to have a better employee experience, because that translates to your customer experience. And
Absolutely,
so it was beyond powerful to really unpack what they all were feeling, to include some level of maybe misplaced trust
yes.
or a lack of empowerment because they felt like they didn't have the information that they needed to be successful.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And then the G in cargo for goals, I'm sure folks get that, self-explanatory. And then O for opportunities. In this particular model, what does opportunities mean in this model?
So, and real quick, I want to go back to that goals piece, right?
Okay,
And this is
sure.
this is sometimes people miss this, James.
Okay,
When we say goals, we think it's always real simple, right? Make some goals for yourself, make the simple goals or smart goals or whatever. But it's more than that.
okay.
As a leader, when I come into an organization or I already exist in an organization, I need to be able to share what my goals are for the team.
Mm,
Right. Again, and that ties back into that piece of responsibility. Because if I share with you, James, as a team member, what the goals are, right? Like in our mastermind, we share what our goals are. So now we know what we are responsible to help each other with.
right.
Right.
And
And then what's that?
and the accountability factor.
Absolutely, man. Like you got to be willing to share those goals, right? And then find out from your people, right? Like people want to tell you what they're looking for. They want to tell you what they need. They want to tell you what they want. But if you never sit down and say, well, hey, you know what, James, welcome to the organization, welcome to the team. What are your goals here?
Right.
Oh, okay. What are your goals within the organization? And maybe if you're willing to share, what are some of your goals personally, right?
Mm-hmm.
Long term. So now, this is something that people at times have a hard time with. When you sit down and you talk to that person, they might say, you know what, James, I'm here to take this job for a year, 18 months, and then I want to move on to something bigger and better.
Right.
Some people, they take that and they're like, wait a minute, right? Well, versus if you say, you know what, cool, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to push you as hard as I can if that's what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do what I can in my power to help influence getting you to the next level, because I have a network that I can expose you to. And if you do these things that I'm expecting of you, that I have levied the responsibility on you for, then when we get to 12 and 18 months and you're ready to move on, hopefully I will have done my job as a leader to help get you to where you want to be at and help you accomplish your goals, right?
Right.
So can you? I mean, the power in that. Now that person's going to be like, for that 12 to 18 months, they're going to be one of the best people you've got on your team, right? And then of course, now they can also help to bring that next person, so you know what you're looking for, right? But if we just say, nah, I'm not going to share my goals, and I don't want to know what your goals are. The only thing I care about is do your job, and I'll do my job. Then again, now we missed an opportunity to communicate, and we missed an opportunity to build trust and rapport with our people for them to bring their best selves to the job.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
So,
And I'll cap it off with opportunities. What does opportunities mean in this model?
yeah, the opportunities, right? Opportunities for success, opportunities to showcase that they're living up to that standard, opportunities to showcase that they are just crushing it, right?
Mm,
And sometimes those are small things, right? And this is from personal and the professional side. Like I said earlier, I alluded to, like, some days my opportunities to succeed is just getting out of bed right now in this current environment, right? For people in the job, sometimes it's, hey, you know what? You showed up, you handled business, you did what you had to do, great.
right.
And sometimes it's actually giving them the opportunities to just have these small wins. And then other times it's showcasing the opportunities to win big and actually discussing where they won in the small ways and where they won in the large ways,
Right.
right? But if we don't create these opportunities to succeed, if we don't show them where they're winning at, and we don't show them where they're getting those 100 attaboys at, right? They're going to feel like that they are never winning. They're going to feel like that they are just here going through the motions on this treadmill of life, this perpetual treadmill. But when you show people that they're winning, when you show people that they're succeeding, and you're providing opportunities for small wins along the way that lead to the bigger wins, people get excited, man. They take pride in winning. They begin to take pride in ownership, and it changes who they are, right? They start smiling, knowing that, you know what, this week, this is how we won.
Absolutely.
Cool. You know what I'm saying? And so each organization has to decide what those opportunities are and what those opportunities look like. But people need to feel like that they are winning. People need to feel like that they are succeeding. And if they don't, then they're going to begin to feel like that they really aren't contributing to an organization, that they are just showing up each and every day, going through the same motions over and over and over.
Yeah. No, that's good. And yeah, I call those, the ring the bell moments, right? You need those
Yeah.
moments, man, where, I've been in environments where you have the board up with the digital display, and every time a person, whatever it is, saves some steps or makes additional sale, right? You can put it up so people can see it and get excited. You need those ring the bell moments, man, to keep people moving, excited from moment to moment. So that's good. So let me try to recap, and anything I go off on, you correct me. But what I heard from you, man, was one, you had your no-fail trust model with the three components of be able to trust the training, the process, and the people. But in this moment, you were able to pivot, understanding that the training sort of went out the door, given all the complexity and things and uncertainty in the environment. So the process to a certain extent as well. But as always, the people is our most precious commodity, right? Our most precious source of any company. And leaders who still don't get that, feel free to come to me for remedial training. I can and out of that, right, is the cargo model, which really then undergirds everything about people: the creativity, unleashing all your resource, unleashing the people to their fullest capacity, blurring the lines, going beyond the job description, and saying to people, wow, you've been around this company for a while. You've seen all these different things. I'm actually going to empower you to go do those things beyond your job description. You don't have to turn a blind eye to it anymore. I'm going to let you go do some things, right?
Yes.
Two, access to resources, literally give people what they need to succeed in those different things. So whether it's physical tools, whether it's virtual tools, electronic tools, etc., give them what they need to succeed. The responsibilities, being clear about the responsibilities and not taking for granted that people know just because it's been written on paper or it's been posted somewhere at some point and sometime it was on some document that Jane saw. Make sure people truly understand what they're responsible for, how to get it done, and the connection, I think I heard from you, between people's different responsibilities, right? People understand how it works person to person. And then the goals, and I love this part too, the leader sharing his or her goals first. I think we should just pause there for a second. Just take a power pause. The leader sharing his or her goals first. Yeah. Some group accountability and what's going to happen from the leader's perspective, what they're going to be accountable for, responsible for, and a shared sense of accountability, not to be thrusted upon or thumped upon, but to get some jet propulsion behind them from the team, right? So is there some vulnerability there? Absolutely. But is there some power that comes with that? Absolutely. And then last but not least, the opportunities. And I love Jason's how you say this, man, the opportunity to give people the chance to get uplifted, to give people the chance to get a that aboard, to give people a chance to get those clapping moments, or what I would call the ring the bell moments, to get reinvigorated and excited about what they're doing and float from moment to moment. So love this cargo model. Thank you, man, for sharing this.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share it, man. I mean, obviously I'm passionate about it, and I'm passionate about people, man. For me, literally in and out of combat, all of my experiences over time, it's been it's been the people around me. It's been the people that I've had the fortune to work with that has allowed me to continue to do what I do. And if I can do something or share something that allows someone else to create that connection and take care of the people, then I feel like I've served my purpose in this world by doing that. And so this is just one of those ways that I'm able to share that. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to share that, James.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, listen, CoreLink Solution audience, you heard it from Lieutenant Jason O'Harris. As always, those are our points, but we love to hear your point of view. So wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, feel free to add your thoughts in the comments. We love to hear from you. And as you know, I'm here to serve. So on this topic or any other challenges, please put comments there. Or you can drop me an email, jamesrousseau@thecorelinkSolution.com. Further, you know, my ask is always, if you find this podcast to be of value, hit subscribe, rate it, review it, share it with someone you know, like, and trust. It is appreciated. Until next time, thank you for linking up. See you next episode. And as always, be informed, be empowered, be accountable. See you soon.